We have traditions for everything. How to sleep, how to eat, how to work, how to wear clothes. For instance, we always keep our heads covered and always wear a little prayer shawl. This shows our constant devotion to God. You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I'll tell you. I don't know. Tradition!
Tradition! Tradition! Tradition! Tradition! Tradition!
Changes and face the strain. Changes. Don't tell them to grow up out of it. Changes and face the strain. Changes. Where's the shame you've left us up to our next event? Time may change me. You can't twist time. Strange fascination, fascinating. Our changes are taking the pace I'm going through. Changes and face the strain. Changes. Oh, look out, you rock and rollers. Changes and face the strain. Changes. Pretty soon now you're gonna get older. Time may change me, but I can't trace time.
We are a constantly evolving group. We are a constantly evolving movement. But at the same time, we have to hold true to those things that have made us unique within the conservative movement. We are a halakhic movement, okay? The observance of Shabbat, the observance of kashrut. But at the same time, we're moving forward. Egalitarianism back in the 1970s, our embrace of Keruv more recently. And we have to continue to look for more ways to be open and welcoming. And, but at the same time, we have to respect those traditions that we grew up with.
What that means to me is perhaps the biggest challenge that we've ever faced as an organization. It's how we're going to accommodate the changes that are necessary for us to continue to thrive. And I think that FJMC basically has to use all of their tools of innovation and leadership and ideas to come up with initiatives that are going to address the situation and enable us to continue to thrive and to do the best we can to preserve tradition.
Within the FJMC context, what it means to me is the FJMC has always been at the forefront of initiatives and change, but still while doing that within the context of the traditions of the conservative movement. That's what makes this such a special organization. When you have something like the Keruv program, which is an innovative, forward-thinking program, but it's still within the context of the traditions of conservative Judaism.
Because Hank Needle wouldn't leave me alone. That simple. I went to my first men's club event to make him shut up.
I just got up from Shiva from my father, and I went to the Saturday morning service, and at the door was Neil Meldman, and he said hello to me, and he asked me, "You want to get involved in the men's club and the brotherhood?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" And so after that, him and Charles Rock, and they schlepped me in full force.
I had started being involved with the PTA of the synagogue, and I became president, and I enjoyed going to men's club activities. So when I was done being PTA president, I moved on, and I started to become active in the men's club, and it was a great decision.
The answer to that is my wife. She said, Gerald, what are you sitting around on Sunday for? Go see the men's club. Go join it or enjoy it. I went, and of course the rest was history.
How'd you like to be on the men's club board? So I said, I'm not even a member of the men's club. He says, don't worry, you're in, and that's how it started.
My first response almost certainly should have been something like, you know I'm not Jewish, probably, or maybe you don't know I'm not Jewish. I didn't even think about that. I said, sure, and I came to the meeting. It was, what I learned was fairly typical for that time period in our men's club, which was everyone was talking at once. There was a fair amount of drinking going on at the same time. It wasn't really clear to me when this meeting was going to start, except when suddenly it was over and I hadn't noticed that there was a meetings part of this that had actually taken place. And thinking about it then and maybe a little bit later, thinking I'd found a home.
I feel that the men's club has a phenomenal part of the synagogue. The combination of doing social events, doing religious activities, being a volunteer, makes it very worthwhile for any man to want to become part of a group. And it's a group effort. It's not one individual doing it for everybody else. And so that's why it's called the men's club.
I would ask him if he plays poker, because that seemed, and everyone laughs at that, but we started a men's club poker night back in 2006, which is still going on, and have found that that's probably the easiest avenue to get men into men's club and then get them involved in the synagogue.
Many times it's somebody new who's come into the congregation, and it's just a wonderful window into meeting other men locally, men in the community, to take your talents. I often talk to them, what passions do you have, what talents do you have that you can bring to the betterment of our synagogue and our men's club to make it, so you'll feel better about yourself, you'll feel like you're contributing, and we will all benefit from your participation.
One of my mentors, Al Davis, always said, if you want to be involved in Jewish life, but you don't want to play politics, join a men's club. We're a group of guys that does things together because we want to.
I would say you should consider joining Men's Club because of our worthwhile programs and projects, and a chance to share experiences with other men. Men's Club is ideal for acquiring leadership skills to provide a congregation.
It's just a great way to become a part of what we are, because it's so much more than just coming here on Saturday morning. But we are here on Saturday morning.
The Worldwide Wrap. It's one of my favorite programs. It is a program that brings people together at least once a year to put on tefillin. The origins of it is a local program out of Charlotte, and the growth of the program to truly a worldwide event really it warms my heart every time we start planning for it.
The Torch Awards, because it's a matter of promoting innovation, of finding out new programs that different clubs have developed and sharing that with other clubs throughout the United States and the world.
Well, I think the Yom HaShoah candles, to me, that was the most dear to me, and the one that I felt was most significant for the FJMC.
I think the Yom HaShoah Yellow Candle program is a paramount program right now because of the current situation, the passing on of the survivors' generation combined with rampant anti-Semitism both here and abroad. I think we have a responsibility to spread the word, to spread Holocaust awareness and education.
I was asked to lead a Hearing Men's Voices, and I chose K-Roof. I must have had 14 to 15 men sitting around, and we must have shared ideas for about 2 hours straight. It was by far the best program they said they have ever been to with Hearing Men's Voices, and it was combining Keruv, another great initiative. But for the most part, Hearing Men's Voices allows men to be talking with total discretion, to be able to get their ideas across, and to really understand what it's like to be a man in this society.
Keruv was really a very bold, game-changing program by lay leadership. Intermarriage has been an issue for a long time in the conservative movement, but the professionals weren't doing anything. The pulpit rabbis wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, and the movement's official stance was at best unhelpful. So it really took a group of committed lay people who were affected by this.
I think it's helped make me a better role model for my son. When I first started in men's club, he was very little, like maybe 5 years old. And so he's seen me go along helping others, not only in men's club, but in community activities, synagogue activities. And so that's been really important to me.
I was shy before, but after being involved in men's club, I wasn't shy anymore.
Prior to the time I was involved in men's club, I was a Jew. Then I got involved with men's club, and now I'm a Jewish man. That's really what it is. There's just so much more about being involved that makes it something more than just going to shul on Saturday and eating matzah on Pesach.
When they need something, the phone will usually be, how can you get the men's club behind this and help run this, help us with this program, help do this, can you support this program? So the men's club has stepped up in enormous ways over the last 5 years.
Our men's club over the years have contributed heavily to new synagogue doors, continuous upgrades in our kitchen, ongoing youth activities, and filled the wants and other needs of the synagogue's community.
We work in collaboration with our sisterhood, our religious school, our cantor who runs concerts throughout the year, our library committee, and we work closely with our rabbi and executive director as we're the go-to organization for programming in our synagogue.
The thing I told our executive director when I became men's club president was, whatever you need, you come to the men's club, which completely transformed our ability to service the synagogue. Anything they've needed, whether it be an initiative to become eco-friendly and change the light bulbs, we've spearheaded that. Whether it be planting flowers in May around the synagogue to beautify it, we're doing that. The Men's Club Sisterhood Shabbat, being involved in that. On the end of Kol Nidre, we supply the flashlights and created a program where the young kids can come in during Ne'ilah, sorry, not Kol Nidre, Ne'ilah, and march with flashlights as the lights are turned down. It just has this huge impact.
We have a relationship with the Catholic Church of St. Anne, which is right down the street from us. And over the course of the last several years, we've celebrated or observed Yom HaShoah together. And it's now at the point that we alternate on Yom HaShoah, either being at the church or being at the synagogue. And I'm really proud of that.
We have a scuba club. We usually go out 2-3 times a year if we can in the summer. We've got lots of places to dive in Southern Ontario. You know, the areas that go diving, quarries, Tobermory, Lake Simcoe. Lake Ontario, we've rarely gone in. We've done it a couple of times. But it's a lot of fun. It's something that we can do as a group, and it's different than going out and joining a Scotch tasting or something.
The person who got me started in men's club, Neil Sachs, and he was very, very ill. He was in a hospital, and I finally had found the time to go visit him. And right around that time, I was learning how to daven Mariv. And so I went there with my wife and talked to him for a few minutes. He couldn't talk back. He was at that point unconscious and not necessarily be able to pay any attention or certainly respond in any way to me. And I happened to bring with me a Siddur, actually the men's club book about learning Mariv. And I sang my way through the Mariv service, leaving out anything that required 10 people, but nonetheless doing a fair amount of it. I was still learning, but that was in some respects the first time I had ever done it in front of anyone else. And you know, that was important to me. It was the last time I saw him alive. I do remember also there was a doctor who came over afterwards who said, "That was very nice, Rabbi."
The best memory for me has to be being the international president, because I had support of so many people all across the United States and Canada. And after 30 years, really, at club, region, and international levels, it was like the culmination of everything.
It was bringing our Scholar in Residence program to fruition. It was something that I had proposed to our men's club board and was rebuffed. It took about 2 years to refine the concept before we finally got it off the ground. And we've built it up over the years to be successful. We received a first place torch award for it. And is now one signature program of our men's club and one of the major events on the congregational calendar.
My most memorable convention experience has to have been the first one. That's the one that really knocks you over. You just get a tremendous wealth of ideas from the speakers, from speaking to fellow FJMC members, and I could have, I think I did write pages and pages of notes of things I learned from that first convention and ideas that I took back to my club.
Being involved in torch awards and at convention in 2013, standing up on the podium in my tuxedo, announcing all the winners and seeing the jubilation and happiness on the faces of the clubs that got recognized for their accomplishments just made me feel so good and so warm. It was like one of my best experiences ever.
When I was president of the men's club and our club won the best overall torch award, the gold torch award for best programming, and we were the only club that won it that year. And it became such a I don't know how to describe it. It became so impressive that our Rabbi Vernon Kurtz, asked me for a copy of it so he could see it. He handed it back to me and he said, "Very impressive." And the next sermon he had included that in his sermon at the Shabbat services. And we had the best men's club membership after that for years.
I was talking to a woman who I never met before, and she says to me she's from Albany. And I said, "That's great, I'm from Albany." And she says her father is Joe Green. I said, "My father is Marty Schulman." It turns out that Leslie Berlin and my father, Leslie's father and my father, worked together for almost 30 years. Now, I did not remember Leslie when I was growing up. She did not remember me. She knew my mom, she knew my dad, she knew my older brothers, but it was just, it was touching, it was heartfelt, it was very sweet, and it's something that I was able to share with my father before he passed away, and it was just a very special moment.
My most memorable convention experience was listening to Rabbi Edward Feinstein give a keynote speech called "The Three Greatest Miracles of Our Time." It was his first address ever to the members at a FJMC convention. I've attended a number of men's club conventions. These gatherings have given me a feeling of togetherness with other Jews, along with the Jewish tradition being carried on internationally, while learning more about Judaism through the dynamic speakers and education that the conventions offer.
After the first convention I went to in Boston, was being at the end of the convention, I met a wonderful group of guys in Boston, and all of a sudden the tri-state area men asked me to be on the retreat committee, and they respected what I had brought up at the Boston convention, and they thought I would be a good person to be on the retreat. So that was my first real involvement outside of the club.
It was the first convention I attended. It was the first Hearing Men's Voices session that I had ever attended, and I was sitting next to Bert Fishman, and it was just an amazing experience. I mean, it's just one that I love to tell the story of that first meeting that I went to with Hearing Men's Voices. And it was a particularly trying time for me. It was when it was a year after Debbie had been diagnosed with cancer, and the topic was talk about a dark place in your life and how you came out of it. And it was one of those things where surrounded by a bunch of people, and by the way, the age range was from Bert, who was already in his 80s, to somebody in their late 20s. And just this whole conversation that we were having, and my point was, I was at a dark place that I hadn't come out of yet. And Bert was just so supportive of the whole thing. But as it was going around the room and people were, and the guys were talking about these places that they have been, it became so obvious to me how important this program is.
The first convention I went to was in 2005 in Fort Lauderdale, and I was almost a last-minute attendee. And the first night, because of the way the Bonaventure Hotel was spread out, each of the regions had their own building for their evening. And Rabbi Simon and I hooked up, I think right after dinner, and we went to every one of the 12 together. And we drank scotch at every single one of them. And we formed a friendship, and the friendship has not wavered ever since. And I want to wish Rabbi Simon a happy retirement. I want to thank him for being my mentor. And I also want to say that he has been the best thing that the FJMC ever had, and we will miss him.
Brotherhood.
Friendship.
Teamwork.
Camaraderie.
Volunteer.
Brotherhood.
Brotherhood.
Service.
Community.
Committed.
I have 4 words, which is making the world better. And I think that Men's Club does that, whether it's on the local level or on the regional level or in the international level, in changing things within the synagogue and changing things within the broader community around our synagogue.
It really goes back to Rabbi Simon's book about cultivating volunteers. And I think that for a club or a region or FJMC to be successful, you have to master that art. And I would add one thing to that. In Rabbi Simon's book, he is incorporating the F word into volunteering, which is fun.
Congregational service, community service, but I think the bottom line is that we provide service to others, and that brings us together.
My greatest accomplishment is I've recruited so many people for leadership positions, and I've mentored so many people, and that's what it's about.
Our coffee house program that we run every year, which was the idea of our previous 2 presidents. They brought it to my wife and to some other people, and we do this every year, and it involves kids from the age of 5 to people who are in their 90s, and they get 5 minutes to do sing or tell jokes or whatever. But it's kind of like an open mic, and we have about 35 acts. We have some great musicians. The rabbi performs in it, and my first convention, we submitted it and we won a Silver Torch Award.
A bicycle ride. We would bicycle from synagogue to synagogue. In the Boston area, that's great because there's a lot of synagogues and there are wonderful roads, wonderful routes between one and another. And we would do so as a fundraiser, and I already had the name. It would be called Tour de Shul.
I remember there was a story where we had an older gentleman who came into the kitchen, and we were cooking food for the men's club breakfast, and he didn't have a job, and everybody was saying, what are we going to do, what are we going to do? And we said, let's make him vice president of onions. And that was his job, and he came in every week after that and cut the onions, and that was his role. We gave him a job, and it's important that men's club identify people that want to help.
My involvement at the region level is doing those things that I find so very enjoyable, but doing them and teaching other guys to do them as well.